Welcome to the episode on the throat chakra. This episode is called Healing Your Throat Chakra, Your Voice as a Portal to Intuitive Listening and Expressing Truth. So, if you've been following me for a while now, or even maybe for a little bit, you might have already figured out that a lot of the template for healing and intuitive development that I'll talk about or teach about is based on the chakra system. And for many years, I've taught trainings and in my books and so on and so forth, where I'm really emphasizing the lower chakras and how important it is in our healing and in our spiritual journey to access the power that lives there and process the emotional wounds or energy we might be holding or carrying still, despite how much therapy we've been through. It's like, really, how are we connecting to these lower parts of our body to heal, clear, release, and embody more of ourselves? So I talk about that quite a bit. And the throat chakra has a role and plays a part in this. And the throat chakra is a power center located in the throat that corresponds to our ability to speak truth or express truth. Sometimes it's not through words, and listen, intuitively listen, and deeply listen. And this power center, for many years in my trainings, often has surprised me at how much, when we get to the throat chakra, how much comes up and out for people when we're healing, when we're on the healing journey. And that's important. It's important that this throat chakra, being that it is the doorway or the portal, so to speak, into the depth of us and into our higher consciousness, that we do allow space for it. We do tune into it and allow it to support us in our healing. So I'm going to say some things about the throat chakra just to give you more context around what I'm addressing here. So the throat chakra, again, it sits in the throat. It's the fifth chakra in the spinal chakras in the lineup there. And it has the front side of our throat is about speaking or expressing truth. And we have a lower body system and we have an upper body system. So what this means is that truth from the lower body might mean personal truths. This is how I feel. This was my experience. This is what's going on in my body or my system. Those are personal truths. And sometimes those personal truths mean that those emotions from the lower body need expression, and that can range from tears to joy, or can range from rage to generosity, kindness, or some type of expression of love. It also is about expressing our higher mind or our higher awareness. So this is the front side. It's about the expression of such. The back side is where we tune into deep intuitive listening. So the back side of the throat is about leaning into our beautiful waterfall of grace. Again, if you've been listening to my podcasts or work, you're familiar. I use that term a lot, this flow of divinity and grace that we lean back into to receive and source ourselves through. So we lean back into that. But the throat chakra, again, is a portal to the lower body and the higher consciousness. So what that means is through the backside of the throat, we deeply intuitively listen to our body, to our heart, to our inner child, maybe lower in the body. Maybe we listen to the liver or the kidneys or the stomach, organs in the body. Maybe we listen to our knees. What do the knees say? That deep intuitive listening is about, from the lower body, is about tuning in to what our body might express. And part of that is also our heart So that might be our soul's calling, or what our soul might have to say. And many people experience listening to their soul by tuning into their heart. And some might access it in a different way. But it's the consciousness that the lower, beneath the throat, in the lower body, the heart, the solar plexus, the pelvis, or the tailbone regions of the body, these power centers have an expression, and that we're deeply intuitively tuning in and listening to what our body might need to say. And again, of course, anywhere else in the physical body. In the backside of the throat, being that the throat chakra is a portal to the lower and higher body, the throat chakra also connects to higher consciousness. And that means our higher self. It means it could be our soul. It could be prayer. So connection to God, to grace, to divinity. It could be, for some people, connecting to spirit guides and angels and facilitating wisdom that might come through that divine channel, for sometimes that zone of genius, there's other words for it, like state of flow, stream of consciousness. There's other, phrases we might use to say the same thing, which is ultimately, I'm in my channel of grace. I'm allowing the wisdom to flow. And if I get my mind out of the way, expression can come through, flow can come through, and that might come in through words. That might come in for some people who have strong throat chakras. They might be public speakers or singers, musicians or artists, or they use their voice in some form of expression. And it doesn't always have to be verbal. Sometimes it's writing. So writers, or the journaling process. I'm leaning back into my flow, and I'm allowing the words to flow through, down from my throat. I mean, it flows down, but it accesses the backside of our throat, and that sense of spiritual consciousness. And we might let that flow down through our arms, through our heart, and through our arms out into pen and paper or keyboard, whatever you might use for that expression. So the throat chakra in this case is about deep intuitively listening, and the front side is about expressing that. So how am I closing my eyes, tuning back, and leaning in to receive, and then allowing that messaging or that expression, whether it's higher consciousness or lower body, to come through the front side. And that is a form of throat chakra expression. It's a form of speaking truth. Truth in the energetic system is the central channel of the body. So it's from the crown of the head to the tailbone. It's that center place of where our soul commingles with the divine universe, and the self, the soul. And so in that place of truth, again, we might be facilitating from higher expression and connection. We also might be facilitating from deep personal truth, connection to our lower body, that sense of being grounded and listening, deep intuitive listening to our lower self and what that part of us might be expressing. So the throat chakra accesses both that deep intuitive listening of higher consciousness and lower body, lower consciousness, an expression of higher consciousness and expression of lower consciousness in the body. And by lower, I mean lower in the body. I don't mean ego or negative, although sometimes it is the expression of our ego, our fears, or the expression of our some form of conditioning that we might be operating from, old belief systems, old ways of being, doubts and fears, etc. So the front and the back, the center, through the central channel, is the power of discernment, when to speak and when to listen. When am I tuning in and slowing down and allowing myself to stay connected to my lower body and higher mind or higher consciousness? And when am I, again, speaking from that place? And we need that balance between both. Okay, let's talk about healing in the throat chakra. So, I'm going to share with you a little bit of my throat chakra journey here, just as a relatable story that maybe you resonate, maybe it brings up some awarenesses for you. So, I have in the chakra journey, um, so in my experience, people come into this world with particularly dominant chakras. And it doesn't mean that others won't expand, heal, become more dominant, balance, that we won't find more prana or power in the other ones in our life journey. Hopefully that's the goal that we do, on our journey. At the same time, sometimes our gifts that we come into this world with are related to the chakras. So I'm just going to tell you from my own experience and my sort of humble assessment of myself in this is that I have come into this world with a strong throat chakra, and I have since I was a child. I was a singer, I was a musician. Public speaking came easy to me. I had vocal expression and words at a very young age. I could formulate words, or I had a lot of emotional intelligence, so I could put a lot of words around emotional experiences, and I could process verbally, kind of at young ages, in myself. And I grew up with that, with that awareness. I also had experiences of tremendous pain in my childhood and in my life on an emotional level. And and in some of those stories I told in my book in terms of just growing up, really with a lot of responsibility on me, and going through a lot of my own emotional suppression at the same time. And as a result, sort of growing up kind of battling weight, battling the sense of, I would say, I became highly congested of energy, probably toxicity, growing up. And when I reached, well, I'll back up to say that music was an outlet for me. Singing was an outlet. Piano playing was an outlet for me. It was a way for me to put words and expression to some of the hurt or the pain I was experiencing. And let's just to level this field a little bit, just to say that, human beings, this is part of our life journey also. We have pain to transform in our lives. We all are going to go through the human conditioning and experience. And this was my version of it. And so by the time I was really in a teenager or even preteen, I got really into theater and music. That was those are my outlets of expression, because I needed the expressiveness unbeknownst to the deeper reason why I was just drawn to it. And then when I started to wanted to pursue music more, like fast forwarding a little bit into my 20s, I really wanted to pursue music um and singing. And I would say I was like marginal. I could sing, but there were much better singers. I could play the guitar. I was a pretty good guitarist, but there's much better guitarists. And at the same time, it was just so my soulful avenue. And I really wanted to pursue it further. But what I wasn't conscious of was how wounded I was in the lower body, how many wounds I was holding and carrying. At the same time, the upper half of me, my heart and my soul, wanted to pursue this path of music. And I was singing out of my wounds. I was behaving out of my wounds. I was expressing myself out of wounds, out of just being deeply wounded in and needing healing so much. Parallel to this journey was this sense of was me opening up to my intuitive gifts, which I've told this story many times, again, in my book and other places. But I was starting to understand that I was deeply intuitive and I had these gifts, and I was training as a healer, and I was learning how to help people through the process. And so there was this whole transformation that was happening. in me learning how to be an intuitive healer, but not really wanting to go down that road as a profession. Instead, I wanted to pursue music, and I pushed and pushed and pushed on that music train until I had a pretty significant loss in my, I would say my late 20s, maybe early 30s. It was right, maybe I was 30. I can't remember exactly, but I had the window smashed open of my car that I was parked in San Francisco as I went in to do something very quickly, came back out. I was on my way to a gig, and all my music and my musical equipment was stolen. All my songs I had written in journals and in charts stolen, and my guitar and everything. It was almost like the universe took it all away from me. My expression, my vehicle for healing. And at the time, I was like, I think I was at the apex of my wounding. And what happened, and I couldn't even believe the cry that came out of me when I found out, when I went to the car and everything was gone. I hadn't even heard that type of sound ever come out of me before, but I wailed. It was so immensely painful, and it felt like my right arm was cut off. And I stopped music completely, and I pursued healing. There were other things that led up to that had me moving more in my healing direction, but I lost it. I lost music. I stopped. I didn't know how to play anymore. I mean, I literally felt like the gift was gone. And then I continued on with healing work. And by the time I got to, when I fast forward quite a bit, I didn't play music at all. I just completely stopped. I had another kind of guitar that was a practice guitar that I carried around from house to house based on where I lived. I transported whatever remaining musical equipment I had when I moved from place to place, but I didn't pick up the guitar much because it felt like a dead part of me. And when I got to when I ended up having a baby, when I ended up getting pregnant and having a baby, I started to feel that there was, not only was I, well, let me just say this, the wounds that I was singing through, I focused on healing inside myself through energy work. So I realized by having that taken away, I was redirected to healing myself at a deeper level. And to me, that was lower chakra work, working on my family history, working on belief systems I've carried, working on deep patterns of being overly sensitive, working on the empath and narcissist dynamic, working on what was underneath weight or deprivation, or you name it, working on the pain in my heart, or lack of sense of self. I mean, I could go down the list. It was all so many things that I had to learn how to drop into when my guitar was stolen, when my right arm was taken off. I mean, that's what it felt like. And so when I had my daughter, it became really clear to me that my throat chakra was in pain. I was getting sore throats. I would lose my voice all the time. I would continue to get respiratory or allergy or expressive issues, sore throats, and that kind of stuff. There was clearly pain in my throat that was beyond physical. It was physical. That was what was getting my attention, but it was emotional. So I started to really tend to my throat chakra on a lot of levels. There was also thyroid issues in addition. So I worked on it from a lot of angles, from addressing thyroid issues, from expression and deep intuitive listening, from healing any levels of pain and the trauma around the pain underneath what I was singing through, plus the loss of the guitar and all my music. All of that was a tremendous pain. I mean, there was a history underneath it. and then the actual act of having that taken away, by the universe. That's how I perceive it. Um, and 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 the loss of that. And so what I ended up doing was working on it on a lot of different levels, energetically, physically. And then I went back to singing in a different way. And I started to go to an a cappella singing group run by my friend Cody. And and the group was small. It was like 6 of us or 7 of us, I think, maybe 8 at the most. But we sang harmonies, and it was harmonies. And I knew harmony was going to heal my throat from this musical loss and from the deep trauma that had been healing and processing, and some of its layers I wasn't even conscious to. So I started singing harmonies, and the harmonies and working together awakened again some of my natural throat chakra gifts and abilities that were there already. They were just deeply buried underneath the sore throats and the laryngitis and all of those things. So I continued to sing in harmonies, and I had no interest of going back out as a musician or anything like that, but I picked up my guitar and strummed a little bit and couldn't remember any of my old songs, and it didn't matter. I would just kind of be with it, be with the reintroduction into guitar and music. I ended up getting a new guitar and trying it again, and all for this purpose of unlocking this power that lived inside me. And what I did was sing through it. And I would allow myself to lean back into my waterfall of grace and to be in the flow with spirit about my voice, and allow that light and that wind to kind of move through from backside to front side, so that what was coming through me was divine. It was from a higher place, from a higher facilitation. And step by step, little bit by little bit, my child's now 8, I started to heal my throat chakra. And that started to permeate into other areas of my teaching, my deepening of expression, the power of speaking from vulnerability and truth, from and becoming more courageous in my conversations, and being able to have difficult conversations from a place of authenticity and grounding, and just and vulnerability, the willingness to have it. And it's been quite the journey through being able to strengthen what I would say is my own leadership as an intuitive, as a teacher, as a space holder, as someone who has a platform and is putting myself out there and being able to communicate from a place of deeper consciousness. But a lot of it, and I've joked over the years and said that, the better, my growth as a teacher and as a leader hasn't been about becoming more intuitive. It's about becoming more human. And the more human I've been, the better I have felt in putting myself out there, and being more relatable and connectable to people, and sharing, again, speaking from that place of understanding where people are. And that's a combination of empathy and vulnerability and being willing to utilize the power of my throat chakra. So that's a pretty long story I just shared and told, but what I want to share about this and why it might be relatable for you is that you might have your throat chakra story. And your throat chakra story might have something to do with how you learned how to express, or how you learned how to not express your truth from the lower body, or your truth from your higher mind, your visions, your ideas, your higher knowing, how you might have learned how to deeply be in tuned with yourself, closing your eyes and leaning back and listening to your higher consciousness, listening to your body, and maybe even listening to others, not from a place of filter, of judgment or your own internal noise, but really listening. And sometimes that means listening to the need underneath someone's expression. That's a tricky one. That takes some cultivating of skill. This person is saying this, but I can tell they need this. They're asking for something deeper than what they're saying. That's intuitive listening on that. That's a throat chakra power, back of the throat chakra power. So you may have your expression. You may have your deep intuitive listening abilities that are here for you. So how do we do that? So part of it is going to be the awareness that you have a central channel and that your throat is going to speak truth from upper and lower body, or it's going to intuitively listen. And sometimes we've been raised in conditioning where we're taught not to. Children are meant to be seen, not heard. We don't talk about our feelings in this family, or keep this a secret, whatever the secret is, whatever it might be. But we get it that it's not okay to speak or express our truth. And so what I might recommend is, first of all, if you're aware that there's something deeper that needs attention, there's some personal history that needs healing, then by all means, you might need to seek out that support, whether it's therapy, trauma therapy, healers to work with. We have healers at the School of Intuitive Studies that have been trained by me, and they do energy healing. That is on my website, School of Intuitive Studies. I think it's like receive a healing, find a healer. But yes, should you need that. So you might need the additional healing support for whatever might be there. But what we do also in that journey need to retrain in ourselves or reparent in ourselves is the awareness that expression is part of the healing journey. We need to express our personal truths and also not assume that our personal truths is someone else's personal truths, because oftentimes they're not. So we want to be careful of projection. Why don't you get my pain? Or, you should feel the way I feel, or assume that others do, but that we have our own personal truth. So my personal truth is I'm angry right now. My personal truth is I have grief. My personal truth is I need to take time for myself because my body's tired. These might be personal truths. Our personal truths might also mean that they might not come out in words. They might come out in tears. They might come out in a big exhale. They may come out in some form of verbal expression that isn't exactly words, but maybe it's a sound. Maybe there's a hum. Maybe there's a a letting out of something. But that we utilize the throat chakra as a gateway or a portal of release. Can do so through long, potent exhales. Breathing into my lower body, and I'm exhaling fully and completely. Connecting to the backside and deep intuitive listening engages our consciousness and the ability to listen to our body and what our body or our higher consciousness might need to say about the energy that we might need to be releasing. So, for example, leaning back and listening to our body might mean I'm tuning in to a younger voice inside me. Maybe it's my teenage self or my adolescent or my inner child who just has a no. The inner child just says no. So I'm just going to express what the inner child is saying. No, 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 no. For all the times I couldn't say no, didn't know how to say no, didn't have permission to say no, I'm saying no. And I'm saying no for all space, time, and dimension inside my body for all the years that I didn't know I could say no. my body's now saying no. And when we do that, that expression has an energetic action in the body. It can be deeply healing. It can be really repatterning inside ourselves, that it's not just the mind saying no or the head up here saying no, but the whole body has the no. On the flip side, it could be a yes. I get to say yes. I get to say yes to myself. I get to say yes to what's possible for me. I get to say yes to the universal flow. I get to say yes to believing in myself, and fill in the blank from there. So, point being is that when we tune in and lean back into the backside of this waterfall and allow this grace in the backside of the throat, we access our lower body intuition and our higher body consciousness. And that can really support the personal expression. Sometimes we're tired of talking, so tired of talking, especially those of you who might be teachers or parents. Tired of repeating myself, tired of saying it over and over again, or, might be in a space where you might be a manager or something like that. I don't know. It's like, I'm tired of the front of my throat chakra expressing itself. I need to spend some time in silence and tuning in and listening to my higher guidance, or what needs to fill my cup. What are the messages I need to hear from myself? I need to spend some time in silence where there's no noise. It's very detoxifying for the throat chakra and for your energy field to silently meditate or engage in silence. And if you're someone that needs like a radio on, music playing, TV going, white noise, anything like that, it might be really interesting to turn it off, engage in silence, and allow the feelings to come up, whatever it is: nervousness, uncomfortability, tears, frustration, irritability, whatever it is, to allow it to come up and make space for it, make space for that expression. That could be a very interesting practice to try. I also want to add to this that sometimes our expression is not through words. I mentioned that. Sometimes it is through painting for some people, or working with their hands. That could be cooking, that could be baking, that could be, crochet, that could be music, instrument playing, it could be woodworking. I mean, any craft that feels like this is my expression. This is how I am expressing this divine essence into the world. So oftentimes artists are expressing their throat chakras through their medium, which is, whatever that might be, whatever that expression is, whether it's a canvas or whether it's, some materials that you're working with. That's also throat chakra expression. Last thing I'll mention is that, people who get into their zone of genius, I call it, or that flow, sometimes channel into this lifetime works of art or works of genius or expression that are meant for this world. And sometimes we see that through classic songs, like the songs that never go away. They were channeled from somewhere higher, or the books that were written that were just, somebody might say, I don't know what I sat down and the muse worked through me, and this was born, this was created. That's again another form of that throat chakra expression of, I channeled through from higher consciousness this body of work, whether it's music or art or poetry or writing or something else entirely. Sometimes it's dance and movement. I know that's full body, but that sense that we are in the expression, the full expression of our truth. And A reminder, that's your central channel, the power of truth in the center of your being. The throat chakra gives us access to that from the higher place and from the lower body. So spend some time connecting with your throat chakra, deeply intuitively listening, lower body, upper body expression of that truth. Allow for your healing, for your lower body healing, also for your throat chakra to help you with that through long exhales. Obviously, you have to inhale, but through the long, potent exhales, expression of emotion, expression of some sort of medium of some kind, whether that's, again, an art form, or sometimes it's power walking to move that up and out. But your throat chakra is a powerful portal into healing for you if you allow it to be. And it's okay to speak your truth. I hope this supports you, and I look forward to seeing you or connecting with you in the next episode.